The Spanish-American War was a conflict in 1898 between the United States and Cuba that resulted in American intervention in the Cuban War of Independence. Riots against the Spanish Empire had taken place for many years in Cuba. In the late 1890s, the opinions of the citizens of the United States regarding Spain were tarnished by anti-Spanish propaganda. This was led by journalists that used yellow journalism to criticize the Spanish administration of Cuba. Yellow journalism is a type of journalism that does not use true facts to back up their stories. Instead, it uses bold and eye-catching headlines to attract and influence readers. The early reasons of the war began with the Wilson-Gorman Tariff of 1894. This tariff was American and put restrictions on sugar imports to the United States. This severely hurt the economy of Cuba because one of their main economic resources was sugar. In Cuba, angry nationalists began a revolt against the Spanish colonial rule. Spain sent in General Butcher Weyler to control the situation in Cuba, and he put much of the population in concentration camps. The U.S., which had business-like citizens interested in Cuba investments, became concerned. This, along with the negative journalism, caused the U.S. to slowly turn against Spain. Problems and conflicts arising from the Peninsula War and the Spanish War of Independence resulted in the loss of most of its colonies in the Americas. This caused the Spanish Empire to become less of a threat to the rest of the world. In 1923, U.S. President James Monroe enunciated the Monroe Doctrine. The Monroe Doctrine was a document that stated the United States would not stand for further interference by European governments to colonize land or interfere with the states in the Americas. Though the United States was safe from European intervention, Cuba, a colony of Spain, was not. After the U.S. Civil War, the United States became interested in building a canal either in Nicaragua or in Panama for naval protection. This led to the expansion of the United States Navy. Theodore Roosevelt became Assistant Secretary of the Navy in 1897 and was an aggressive supporter of a war with Spain over Cuba. In the meantime, the Cuba Libre movement had established offices in Florida and New York to buy and smuggle weapons in and out of the United States. It caused a large propaganda campaign to generate sympathy that would put more pressure on Spain. On February 15, 1898, the battleship Maine was sunk by Spain, causing the United States to declare war on April 25, 1898 on Spain. The media released information about declaring war and exaggerated the treatment of Cubans by Spain, causing the citizens of the United States to become angry. The Philippines were also a colony under Spanish rule. The first battle between the Spanish and the Americans took place on May 1, 1898, in Manila Bay, Philippines. This battle marked the end of the Filipino-American collaboration because the Filipinos resented the capturing of their home city, Manila. Not only were the Spanish defeated in the Philippines, but the United States also captured the Cuban city of Santiago de Cuba and attacked 1,270 Spaniards at the Battle of El Caney and the Battle of San Juan Hill. Spain was downtrodden by the forces of the United States, and after U.S. withdrawal due to the spread of the yellow fever, the Spanish promised peace with Cuba and the Philippines. The war ended with the signing of the Treaty of Paris on December 10, 1898. As a result, Spain lost its control over the remains of its overseas empire. After the war, the U.S. made improvements in Cuban government infrastructure and the educational systems. In 1901, the U.S. forced the Cubans to insert the Platt Amendment into their constitution, which gave the U.S. a military base, Guantanamo, on the island. Some outcomes from the war are that Northerners and Southerners, blacks and whites, fighting together helped ease the scars left from the American Civil War. This war also sparked American involvement in foreign affairs, and the U.S. entered a long period of new wealth and population growth that lasted up until the Great Depression. Lastly, the war effectively ended the Spanish Empire. Spain's power had been declining since the early 19th century due to Napoleon's invasion, but the loss of Cuba left the country at a complete loss. The Teller Amendment, promising Cuban independence, was passed before the war began, but the Senate Platt Amendment forced a peace treaty, which stopped Cuba from signing treaties with other nations or contracting public debt. The U.S. also annexed the colonies of Puerto Rico, the Philippines, and Guam that had belonged to Spain. Overall, the Spanish-American War was successful for America, and it helped bring the United States together as a country. It also showed that we were a rising powerful nation, and it gained us several new colonies and allies.